Hello my friends, welcome back to part 2 of this little tutorial. I hope you're finding this interesting and I hope you're learning something from it. I may have went into a lot of detail, but I think if you want to paint rocks, make them eye-catching and put a little bit of extra time into the rocks. They're looking quite nice, aren't they? Nice highlights. You can see lovely highlights on the rocks here. The blue, the light blue, really complements the water. And against the light, bright yellowy colours as well. So we're going to just finish in around here. Lots of spray and all that kind of stuff coming up, and work on some reflections as well. So let's go. Let's have a bit of fun with this and see what it looks like when it's finished. Thank you so much for joining me. Do subscribe. You're missing out if you haven't subscribed. Click the subscribe button and the notification button as well. I have a new tutorial every week, almost every week. So subscribe. Let's keep it going, as they say. Right, let's crack on. I'll set up the camera and we'll have a bit of fun with this and see what we can create. So I am going to just fill in this rock here first, okay? This is still a little bit wet now from yesterday, but you're watching the tutorial right away after part 1. But I left this dry overnight. It's only a little bit dry, still fairly wet here and there. But look, let's just fill in this rock here. I'm going to try some burnt sienna and some Naples yellow. And I'm just going to fill that in. Very loose, just go right over it, just very loosely, not completely. Okay. And then I'm going to take some burnt umber. And maybe a touch of black. It's a very dry brush now, okay? And I'm just going to kind of dab it like this, just to create some texture on the rock. Now again, we can use a fan brush if we want as well. That's another way of doing it, but let's just kind of build it up slowly. Try a touch of magenta with black. That gives a lovely deep shade, doesn't it? I just want to, again, create a little bit of texture on this rock just to make it look rough. It is by the water, so it's going to be rough. Some rocks are very smooth when they're by the water, but I just want to make this look a little bit on the rough side. We could go to our fan brush and try a little bit of Naples yellow and magenta. Tiny bit of each on the fan brush, look. And we'll just, to separate the light from the dark, just go along like this with the fan brush, along the edge of the rock, just to separate it, make it nice and separate from the back rock behind it. And then just simply dab, 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 soften it down. I don't want too much of just a line along the top, so I'm just going to kind of come down a bit here and there as well, look. Just to make it nice and random. That's not a bad rock now, is it? And if you wanted to add just the tiniest touch of a detail into this, you take a small pointy brush and with a bit of black or something, you just kind of come down and add a few little hints of detail, little scratches or cracks in the rock, that kind of stuff. Look, just kind of allowing the brush to sort of dance around randomly on the rock. That's all. Now, that's absolutely fine. I don't see anything wrong with that. I'm going to, I really want to leave this to last. I'm going to come down and just add a little bit of detail with a small detailed brush. Now I just need to find a very small brush. I have so many brushes here just kind of lying around, but it's difficult to find a very fine brush sometimes. Nice small detailed brush. Let's just wet that, get it nice and pointy. And I'm going to go for a very dark bluey blacky shade, okay? Lots of thinners. Some phthalo blue and a little black. Lots of thinners to make this flow nicely. That's what you need. That's the trick. Lots of thinners. Let's come down and let's just sort of, I'm going to just sort of put some little wiggles. That's the only way I can kind of describe it really, is little wiggles with the brush. And you can see I'm just kind of reinforcing some of the shadows that I put in yesterday. But this little bit of detail now will just make them a little bit more believable. Make it really, really watery. And go over here and put a couple like that. Look, just a couple of random wiggles, just to suggest movement in the water. That's really all it's for. There's no sure way of making this absolutely perfect. You know, I don't really know what this is going to look like until I put the paint on. That's the type of technique I'm using. I'm just kind of winging it, let's say. Let's just call it winging it at the moment. And I just don't want to go overboard with this. I don't want to do too much. But at the same time, I want to make an impact with the reflection. Well, I'm going to do the same type of technique with some lighter colour. I'm going to take a bit of white and a touch of phthalo blue, tiny touch. Make a nice white, bluey colour. And again, a bit of thinners than that. Now, because I'm using this white, it's going to be slightly thicker. It's going to be very difficult to get this white very thin. So it doesn't matter if it's slightly thicker, I suppose. It's okay. I'm just going to pop a little bit of that whitey colour in here and there, just to highlight some of them. Let's see, for example, over here, okay? Let's just go around some of these, and you can see how dry the brush is. It's really dry. It's only just really to put a couple of highlighted marks on the painting, that's all. Just around some of those black lines. Okay, it's just a hint of it here and there. And how about some turquoise? We put a bit of yellow into that mix with some white, and we could get a nice turquoisey kind of a blue, and we could pop some of that in there. Would be nice. I think that just adds to the painting, doesn't it? Again, it's just bringing a little bit of colour into the painting. That's all. Just a little. Now, I think that's all right. I'm going to move on and concentrate on this centre area here. But what I must do first is I just want to bring an extra bit of this yellowy warm colour down on the side of that rock there. Just a tiny little bit of it, just an extra little bit. Let me try a touch of cadmium red, cadmium yellow. I'm just kind of trying different mixes now here at the moment. Just want to kind of bring it down a bit more into the rock here, okay, just like that. And I might go a little bit further off into the distance with this as well over here, look. Now, that is okay. What about all this lovely thick paint we have in the middle here? You can make this kind of tricky, but when I'm painting something like this very rough, I tend to just kind of go and have a bit of fun with it. You know, there's so many different techniques you can use for that type of a finish just in there. I'm going to start with some white and some magenta first, okay? Very, very whitey magenta. And let's just start by flicking some paint up onto the rock, okay? And you see I'm just being very messy with this now, very messy, because I'm going to be using my palette knife in a moment as well for a lot of this. But I just want to do this technique just to kind of get some of it sort of filled in, if you know what I mean. Just to get the bulk of it in. And we can use our palette knife then after that. Let's go and take some phthalo blue and some white. And it just gets a bit more on the blue side over here. This is just really the initial colouring in, let's say, the initial filling in. Even right now you can see it's starting to take shape, isn't it? Now, we could quite simply go on to a palette knife. Let's try a palette knife, come on. Let's get some of the white and a little Naples yellow and a touch of magenta. I'm just going to mix them very, very lightly. Now, this has probably gone a bit funny because I had a bit of yellow and blue on my palette, so I'm just going to clear a spot on my palette here first, okay? Let's clear a spot. It can get quite messy when your palette gets full like this. And I generally only use a tiny portion of my palette. When I'm painting most paintings, I only kind of use a little bit of my palette. I don't like using a big palette because it gets very messy. It really does. So what I would say to you is try and practice using just a small portion of your palette. And that prevents you from making big puddles of paint. A little bit of Naples yellow, a little bit of white. And let's just start putting in some of this. And this lovely thick paint now will kind of rise from the canvas, and it will almost create its own little shadows as it's going. You know what I mean? Do you understand what I mean by that? More Naples yellow, more magenta. Touch of cadmium, perhaps. Why not? Touch of cadmium yellow. Let's get some nice bright yellow spots up here. And I'm just simply going to I'm trying to be very sort of loose with this. You see what I mean? I'm just kind of dabbing and I'm kind of scratching and swirling. I'm going to grab some cadmium yellow, touch of cadmium red, my palette knife, and a touch of white. I just want to really give a bit of a glow. You see the way they're really hitting the sun, some of these? So why not? Let's just add a little bit of that bright colour in there. And they come right over here, don't they? Lots of little touches of that yellow colour. Very gently. Just one or two. No, not too bad so far. I think I'll go on to my small pointy brush after this. I don't want to go overboard with a palette knife because I want to keep this, I don't want to go too messy. If you use the palette knife too much, it can get quite messy. You know what I mean? You probably do, but it can get quite messy. I'm going to use some white and some blue and just start wiggling some white and blue in here and there. And it's really just an effort to try and create that effect that we're after, okay? That's all it is. Then clean my pointy brush again, and I might just go into some white perhaps. And looking at it, I can see it's just sort of little wiggles of colour. That's what it kind of appears like, little wiggles of colour. So I'm just going to keep kind of going like this until I feel I have what I want. I'm going to take a bit of warm colour, magenta maybe with some cadmium yellow, and I'm just going to put a suggestion of that sunlight hitting the water down here as well. See what I mean? Just little hints of it there, here and there, and soften it in. We need a little bit of dark colour up there as well. I'm going to use that magenta with some Sienna. Sienna, magenta and a bit of cadmium yellow. And I'm just going to kind of add some dark spots up here. I think it needs a little bit of darkness here and there. I don't want to go too bright with this, you know what I mean? A little bit more perhaps just down here. Look, little hints of it. Then I'm going to put a deep purple. Okay, I'm going to mix a deep purple, phthalo blue and magenta. Plenty of each, plenty of thinners. And I'm going to just start bringing some deep purple in around here and there. Just around some of those marks. I'm really just trying to sort of tie everything together. That's what I'm trying to do. Now, whether it looks like that or not, I don't know. It's difficult to tell until you kind of sit back from a painting and take a look. It can be difficult to kind of see until you sit back and take a look. It doesn't look too bad so far. I mean, look, it's a suggestion of the scene that we're painting. We're not trying to copy this exactly, make a photograph out of it. It's just a suggestion. That's all it is. But yeah, we can just tip away with this in our own time. I'll take some Naples yellow. I'm going to pop some Naples yellow just in around here and there. You see, I'm just kind of adding colours. But again, if you feel it's starting to get messy, stop for a moment, just take a look. Stand back and take a look. That's what I would say. Because you may feel it's getting out of control. Sometimes it can get out of control very, very easily. So, you know, just stop and have a look. Now, I'm going to stop at that. That's not too bad. It's not too bad. I will just take my palette knife again and just do maybe a little bit more with the palette knife. Down here, for example, I'm just going to add a little bit of the bluey shade in around here, just to kind of soften it into this rock down at the bottom, just a little. And then I might go back into some white on its own and just really try and brighten up this area here, just where the sun is catching. I just want it to be really bright, you know what I mean? Nice thick white paint. And I know it doesn't look exactly the same, but I don't mind if it doesn't look exactly the same. I really don't. I'm just kind of going and having a bit of fun with this. That's all I'm doing. It's all about having a little fun, isn't it? My friends, I think I'm nearly done. Because I wanted to show you another way on a separate canvas, just how to paint very easy kind of rocks. I just want to give you a quick demonstration, if I had the time, how to paint similar rocks. So look, I'm going to call this finished for now. I might come back to it and do another little bit later on, but there's no urgency with this. I really wanted to show you how to paint very easy rocks. Let me just finish up here. I'll call this one done, okay, my friends? Now, I hope you've enjoyed watching this one, but let me grab a small canvas just very quickly. I just want to show you something. How, you know, there it is. That's not bad, is it? I just wanted to show you very quickly painting basic rocks, okay? Now, if we take, let's take a bit of light grey or something like that, okay? A medium grey. If you want to paint just a simple grey rock with some lights and darks on the rock, okay? What you could do is just, let's just paint an impression of a rock like this. Okay, and we come back like that. Okay, then we have, let's say we have a dark section down the back of the rock. Okay, then it turns. So this was probably going to be like a basic rock that you might see in the water. Okay, so you can see what I did: a medium grey, then just a dark shade, then just take some perhaps Naples yellow and white, and we just start lightening little bits here and there, and just scrape the brush like that. Okay, that looks like a basic rock already, doesn't it? We can just add a bit of light to the light side of the base of the rock there, and just kind of soften it around here and there. That's one way. And then, you know, you could take with a pointy brush a little bit of black or something, and you could just go around and add a little detail, look, little cracks and that kind of thing to the rock, little wiggly lines. Now that is a nice kind of a basic rock for you to paint. Different colours. Okay, let's try some Naples yellow and a bit of white. Okay, there's a kind of a mixture of colours on this now. Let's say you want a rock in the water like this. Take a bit of pinky shade. It doesn't, any colour, whatever colour, you could do this in the grey or whatever. Okay, then we take some burnt umber and we create a little dark side with burnt umber. And then as it comes around to the light, we just take a bit of Naples yellow, like so. Okay, that's another simple rock. Then just take a bit of black and we just kind of soften bits of black through it here and there, like so. And you can come up then and just kind of drag a little bit of colour through the rock here and there as well. That's another kind of an easy way to paint rocks. Now, you have the rocks then which are kind of round. So let's imagine a stone wall. Okay, so you have, let's just pretend we're building a little bit of a stone wall here. Okay, so I'm going to just go like that, some random shapes on a wall. I'll paint them all in the same shade of grey, okay, like so. Then I'll just take some black and burnt umber perhaps and just start adding little bits of shading to them here and there, primarily at the base. Okay, and then clean your brush very quickly, take some white, some Naples yellow, nice highlight colour, and just start going around the tops of them, like so. And what that's doing is just separating the stones from one another, you see. It's just separating them. Now, you can do it that way, and then you can just get your fan brush and you can soften the colours together with your fan brush to create a little bit of texture on them. So they go from light to dark nice and softly, like so. And then with your pointy brush at the very end, you just go along there and add little highlights. So a little bit of white around here and there, look. Soften it through. And that's just a nice effective way of painting little rocks. So you basically start off with one shade, you paint everything in the one shade, and then you come along afterwards and you add some lights and you add some darks. I find that's probably the easiest way of painting rocks. It's nice and simple and straightforward. So my friends, there you go. We are finished. I'll put this other painting back up there now. And there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this week's tutorial. I really do. It's been an absolute pleasure painting for you. Let me just adjust this here. There we go. That's fine. That's not a bad painting, is it? I might just maybe add one or two little highlights here and there, and that's the problem when you're painting. You see, you end up doodling, don't you? You end up doodling, and you can sometimes make it worse, but it's fine. It's absolutely fine. I think that's quite nice. I might soften some of those back in, even with the tip of your finger. You can just soften the edges of them back in, just to create that sort of hazy look around the distant rocks, just to give it a little bit of haziness. And there we are, tutorial finished. I'll be back next week with another tutorial. If you have any suggestions or requests, please do just comment in the comment box. I read all the comments, and I do try to reply to every single comment. If I don't, I will in time, I promise. Thank you so much for watching, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope it has given you some little bit of insight into painting rocks and creating a dramatic painting just with rocks. It's quite nice, I think. I'm very happy with this. I'll put a frame on this and we'll see what it looks like framed. I'll see you very soon. Happy painting, and God bless. Take care.